What's up, sports fans? Welcome to V Sports Insider. So we are forced to interrupt our The Best of 2020 series because the hater outrage on Canelo Alvarez continues, and now they're claiming that Canelo is avoiding and ducking Errol Spence because Spence is too fast. We're gonna talk about that, so stay tuned. So as we all know, Saul Canelo Alvarez has recently defeated Callum Smith, became the four-weight world champion, and cemented his place as the pound-for-pound king. But that has not stopped haters from doing what they do best, that's hate on Canelo Alvarez, bash Canelo Alvarez's name. And it has been brought to our attention that one of those devotee fan club channels, namely Fanon Boxing, has been very active these days, claiming that Canelo Alvarez is ducking and avoiding Errol Spence Jr., an outrageous claim that has zero logic, that makes zero sense, and that even Errol Spence Jr. disagrees with. We're gonna break it down and we're gonna bust this agenda. So first, we had to go on and verify if that's indeed what the mentioned channel claimed, that Canelo was avoiding and ducking Errol Spence, because otherwise we would have to wonder if that's just a low IQ statement or a coordinated propaganda campaign. So we had to do our research, and that's exactly what they said. Fanon said that Canelo Alvarez is ducking Errol Spence Jr. because Errol Spence is too fast, because speed kills, and that Errol Spence is pound for pound number one and should have been named Fighter of the Year 2020, and that Canelo Alvarez is nothing but a pound for pound bum basher, and then afterwards obviously calling Callum Smith a Euro bum. So a lot of nonsense, a lot of pure blind hatred for Canelo Alvarez, and not a lot of intelligence in these remarks, in these statements. But that's a problem with the channels like these. They do not target audience that's intelligent enough to think for themselves. They target audience that's the most likely to believe such nonsense, and that's obviously the least educated, the least knowledgeable, and the least intelligent type of people that follow boxing. They are the only ones that can possibly believe such nonsense. A lot of those stuff that they say, those hater channels, they contradict themselves, for one, and for two, people that are trying to hype up as boogeymen for Canelo Alvarez, they disagree with them too. Errol Spence, he disagrees with Fanon himself, because you know Errol Spence, he was in attendance for Canelo versus Callum Smith fight. He was interviewed by the Zone commentary. He didn't say that Canelo was avoiding him. He never indicated that at all. He only said that he would like to move up and fight Canelo Alvarez, and even Spence himself didn't insist that he would beat Canelo Alvarez. There was a direct question towards Errol Spence Jr., which said Canelo versus Spence, what happens there? And reply from Errol Spence was an absolute war. So he did not say he would defeat Canelo Alvarez. He's aware that he's not a favorite to win that fight, and there he directly contradicted what a Canelo hater channel such as Fanon Boxing had to say himself. And you know, that wasn't the only problem. Fanon contradicted himself as well. So he was discussing on whether or not Charlo versus Canelo or Spence versus Canelo was a better fight to make, and he said that Charlo would be a better fight and Errol Spence would be a bigger fight. And he also said, Fanon did, that Canelo Alvarez would be a favorite to defeat Errol Spence. So there you have it. Those channels, they just blindly spread anti-Canelo propaganda. They do not care if they contradict themselves. They do not care if they contradict their earlier statements, because what they count on is their audience not being smart enough, not being intelligent enough to see that. And you know, Errol Spence himself, a few months ago, he was asked who was the best pound for pound fighter in the world, and guess who Errol Spence put as number one? That's right, Canelo Alvarez. He put Canelo Alvarez in front of himself. He put himself at number 3, and he put Canelo Alvarez as number 1 pound for pound boxer in the world. Once again, disagreeing with the same channels that are trying to hype him up as a boogeyman, as a supposed boogeyman for Canelo Alvarez, because he himself knows that's not the case. But you know, as always, that's the downside of sticking to a particular propaganda, to sticking to a particular agenda. At the end of the day, you are risking to more often than not end up contradicting yourself and end up looking stupid. But you know, as always, you're never gonna find propaganda here, you're never gonna find any agenda here, and this was a report by V Sports Insider.